Very human and very normal to feel angry and resentful towards somebody that hurt you, especially if they brought you into this world. The whole idea of the book, from the title to what's in it, is quite confronting as well.
Sure, it is. Feels confronting for me.
The work that I do and the things that I look at is not about fault or blame.
Do you think it's a misconception that people hear what you're saying and then think you're blaming others?
I get a lot of stick online, right? I think it's really important to understand that if somebody is abusive, then there is a victim. And before you can get to a stage where you break free from that victimhood, there has to first be a full acceptance and understanding that you were a victim. A lot of people jump that step, bypass it, and then get triggered by me talking about it.
This is why podcasts are great, because we get to look at the nuances and look at the yes and.
I don't think you should ever give up on anyone. I don't think society or communities should ever give up on anyone, even the toxic parents that I'm talking about.
Does that make its way into the book? Thank you, bro. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Pleasure, mate. We've been saying we're going to do it for a while, haven't we? How long ago was the last one?
I say it was nearly 2 years ago, so I'm pretty sure it was like January last year. So it was like, nearly 2 years. I'm pretty sure.
I reckon it's longer than that.
Do you think?
I reckon this January will be 3.
Interesting. Oh, yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. What's been going on, bro?
Well, you probably know actually better than me, don't you? I'm questioning you. Well, mate, been busy since then. I feel like life's changed quite a lot since then, since we last spoke.
Tell me.
Well, both internally and externally. I guess you're always moving towards something. The book has come out.
This little number. How does it feel like to see it, just to give birth to it and it be a thing?
It's mad. I'm not fully there yet with.
Go. Yeah.
Well, like I do breathwork, yeah. So I feel very much like a breathwork facilitator or coach or whatever you want to call me. Like, if you ask me what I do, I'll say...
Not an author.
I don't say author, no. And I got invited to like an event from, invited by my publisher to an event with loads of other authors. And I still was like, I've been invited to an event where there's loads of authors there. Not, I'm going to be one of the authors at the event. So it's still not fully there. And I was just telling you, I picked that up in Waterstones on the way here because I forgot. Well, actually, Debs forgot to tell me. But it was nice to have the moment to get it, but I'm still not there, mate.
Did someone at the counter go, oh yeah, is that you?
It's funny because I picked it up, yeah, and then I was like, am I going to tell her at the counter? Am I going to say that I wrote this is my book? I didn't, nah.
You maybe could have asked them, how's it doing?
Yeah. Selling many of these?
No, bloody got some complaints actually.
Yeah. Oh, you're not buying this? She went, surely not this. Oh, cool, thank God that's off the shelf. It's been on there since July. But no, man, I mean, like the whole idea of the book, what's in it, what it's about, the title. In your way, is it in your way? Yeah, so the whole idea of the book, from the title to what's in it, is quite confronting as well.
Sure, it is. Feels confronting for me.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, but even just as the title, so like if I say to people, I'm an author, they say, what book did you write? And I go, I normally say it's them, not you. But I don't go, how to break free from toxic parents and reclaim your story, because it's just like, it never brings a nice conversation or a nice look when you say it. Do you know what I mean? So, but I'm aware of that, right? That's the whole, that's part of it. Isn't it? So.
Yeah. Has there been moments when you have said the subtitle or even just the title and there's been, just some like distance in the atmosphere of like, oh, don't know where to go from here?
Will you get anything from people who make jokes about being parents themselves, and the most common thing I get is I'll have to buy one for my daughter or I'll have to buy one for my son, which is just a light-hearted way of like
deflect.
Yeah, not having to go into the not necessarily It's not always necessarily done by somebody who thinks, oh my God, I don't want to talk about it, but just, I think, in recognition that it's a difficult subject.
Yeah.
But you'll be surprised how many people that I know that have contacted me to say, yeah, I've read the book. And I still go like, oh really? And they're like, yeah, and they'll say like, yeah, it was really useful, thank you. And then you're like, oh wow, you as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's quite a lot of that goes on. But I certainly now know, not just through the book, but through the content and stuff, how widespread a thing that is. It's more widespread than I thought. / I suppose I now operate in a sort of echo chamber of
Sure.
that
Wow,
too.
even when I typed it into Audible, other book recommendations came up.
Right.
And it surprised me actually how many books there have been written, but they look quite old, if I'm honest. I didn't look into them. They look like quite olden times, like maybe 90s, of books that have been written in the same ilk and the same kind of genre of how to navigate that.
And actually it's interesting because I think if you look at the patterns of like what's popular in the kind of healing space around the sort of early 90s, you had like John Bradshaw. He might have been even a little bit before the 90s, but you had this kind of work. There was a book called The Drama of the Gifted Child, and there was quite a lot of talk around the impact of childhoods and parenting, and there was quite a big sort of codependency conversation around then. And then for whatever reason, and I sort of have my ideas of some of those reasons, it like faded out towards the back end of the 90s. And if you look at the 90s, noughties, and even sort of 2010s up till sort of now, we went on a different path where it was like, it's nothing to do with childhood, it's all entirely genetic. And like I say, I think there's a few reasons why that happens, like way more than one reason.
So what specifically is genetic, or do you think that was more of the...
So like when we talk about like internal struggles and stuff like that, I think there's a number of reasons why I think the genetic conversation is pushed from, it's much easier, right? If our struggles in adulthood are entirely genetic, then everybody gets off scot-free, isn't it? And we don't have to have any accountability or any self-reflection as humans. We can just sort of say, what will be, will be. If the problem is genetic, then it lies solely within you. And so then there's lots of profiteering that can happen from that. And then I think if you look at things like homosexuality, for example, when they proved that was genetic, I think actually if you look into it, there was an initial rise in stigma around it when it was genetic. But after that, it was like, well, it's not, it's not choice. This is not what happens. And then it sort of broke the stigma. It was like, they could no longer, because homosexuality was a disorder until 1965, right? So there's this kind of push and drive towards, if it's genetic, stigma will go away because it's nobody's fault. But actually, the work that I do and the things that I look at is not about fault or blame. It's more just about understanding and seeing where things originate from.
Do you think that's a misconception that people have when they find you, see the title, very boldly put, it's them, not you? Do you think that's a misconception when people come to you and they see your content online, which may be where most of your traffic may come from, or exposure, see the very like hard-hitting truth of Josh, of like unapologetic, this is the reality, no holds barred, this is reality. But this is the reason why I connect with you, because I know we will share so many things of this conversation that are going to be so similar, and we're going to agree on so much of it. But then I think this messaging piece, which is like a big piece, because it's like it's where people meet you in your messaging. Do you think it's a misconception that people hear what you're saying and then think you're blaming others, and it's not going to get us very far?
Yeah, look, what's interesting is I don't get much. I get a lot of stick online, right? But most of it is like feels a little bit like it's coming from people that feel very exposed by what I'm talking about.
Yeah, emotionally attached to the
story.
story.
Yeah, so it's like emotionally charged, sort of, triggered by the conversation. But I don't get much stick to my face about it, but I sort of know that it goes on, that a lot of people sort of talk about how, the whole victim mode stuff, victim mentality, or, like you say, that I'm talking about blame. I would actually argue that it is a misconception, but I would say that it's, in most cases, more of a reflection of what's going on inside somebody. Because if you actually look at everything that I say, I don't talk about blame at all. When I say it's them, not you, I think if your first and lifelong bully is your parent, then a good starting point is to understand that your struggles are not, it's not you, it is the person that's done that to you. And then listen, when you go on a journey, you start to understand that your bully was probably bullied when they were younger, and then when you look at the subtitle of How to Break Free from Toxic Parents, there's a chapter in the book that's called Healing My Relationships, and actually that is about how do you find a relationship with this person? Do you need to adjust your expectations? Is it possible for you to be able to have a relationship with the recognition that in some cases, many more than people would wish to believe, the only option is to cut contact, So I do think it's, I know I've gone around the houses a little bit with this, but I do think it's a misconception, and I think it's really important to understand that if somebody is abusive, then there is a victim. And before you can get to a stage where you break free from that victimhood, there has to first be a full acceptance and understanding that you were a victim. And I think a lot of people jump that step, bypass it, and then get triggered by me talking about it. Because they're projecting their own internalized victimhood and my ease of talking about it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And there's also maybe a piece around the over-identification of not being a victim and what that means.
Yeah.
Potentially. So could we dive in a little bit here around what you just said? God, I've lost the trail of thought. Which was going into why it's so important to acknowledge that you were a victim. Why is that so important?
Because I think you first need to know exactly what you're dealing with. So if you've been the victim of the type of person that I'm talking about, and I'm talking primarily about parenthood here, So if the very person that was supposed to keep you safe in your life is the very person that did the exact opposite of that, that confused you, that coercively controlled you, that made you feel like you were crazy, if you start trying to work on not being crazy, you might miss the fact that you're not even crazy. And how you're feeling and responding and reacting is completely and entirely appropriate based on your experiences.
Just looking at root causes.
Yeah. So I think it's really, really important. I think sometimes we do this big sort of avoidance, particularly of the big emotions. So, you know, if you're on the end of a toxicity and or abuse, whatever name you want to put to it, it's really appropriate to feel really angry about that. And I think sometimes we skip that. So I'll give you a prime example. I just saw a video online. I've saved it because I might make a bit of content around it. But there's a chap and he says something like, you know, you can't be resentful to the people that hurt you because without the pain that they caused you, you wouldn't be the person that you are today. And I think, I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I understand that we should move through resentment.
Trying to find purpose in the pain.
Trying to find purpose in the pain. I think that's great. And I think it's very human and very normal to feel angry and resentful towards somebody that hurt you, especially if they brought you into this world, or in many cases adopted you or something like that, and they were supposed to keep you safe and they did the opposite. No, it's not that I'm saying you should stay at anger and resentment.
Yeah.
But if you just jump away from it and think I'm not supposed to feel it, so I'm going to go straight on to working on feeling great about myself, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. And I think as a result of that, you meet a lot of people who are deep in spiritual work or actively doing spiritual practices,
but
are spiritually bypassing. And I'm hyper vigilant, mate. I'm highly sensitive. I'm highly tuned in. I mean, there's a level of arrogance in me saying that, isn't there, really? But I've been around people that are like doing this stuff every day, and I think you're a horrible human being. And like, I did a breathwork. I was invited to. Have you heard of Almond Base Festival?
Yeah.
So I was there this year.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Rachel, who
I've met her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's an incredible woman. Yeah. And that was just full of like really good people. And she said to me, at that festival, she said people go to like spiritual festivals and think these are the safest places on the planet because it's a spiritual festival and we're all here for love. And she said in some ways, if you're not careful, they can be the most dangerous places.
Yeah, because your guards are down, because you have the belief that it is.
Yeah, and then you've got a lot of, if you look at like narcissism and stuff like that, these are the places those people go to hang out as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the truth.
Yeah, so this is where short form content doesn't do us any favors, I don't believe. This is why podcasts are great, because we get to look at the nuances and look at the yes, your pain is your purpose, and there's work to be done, and there's things to sit with. And it's, for me, like you've got different ways into the conversation, but we arrive at the same point.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, it's not your fault. And that's the same as saying it's not you. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not you. There's circumstance, there's environment, big parts of your life.
Yeah.
And unless you look at that and realize that you weren't born this way and there are reasons for feeling this way, then you can't really get anywhere, because you've got to have context for this experience in order to work through it. But the piece around pain to purpose, yes. And I do this to some people, and this is my projection or like my judgment of like when someone's in pain, and I'm like, well, perspective is the most powerful word. If you were able to see within this the lesson and the opportunity for growth, and it's like, what's the window that becomes the next step? Yeah. Before, you're feeling fucking shit, and I hear you, I validate you, I see it, and that's enough for now. Like just owning it and honoring it. Yeah.
Well, if you think of like, to use like an analogy or a metaphor, if you were in a really bad car crash, right, and you were beaten up badly in this crash, when I come and visit you in hospital a few days later, I'm visiting you. I'm like, this is hard, man. I'm here with you. What do you need? Yeah. This is rough. Yeah. That's probably not when I start saying, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you. Yeah.
Well, you can see it. It's physical. I can see your inability.
Now, I might be thinking that. I might be thinking I can see that. But right now, in that moment, that's not what you need. And so I think that's what happens a lot. And by the way, I'm guilty of it. Like, I'm guilty. Like, when somebody comes to me with their pain, I want to fix it straight away. I want to get straight back to, I want to get to somewhere that feels more comfortable for me, because it ain't about them. So yeah. And I do think that with some of the online stuff, same thing as you said with the short form content, but I also think that I think some people, even when they go into the long form of it, they are so terrified of the pain and the discomfort. And I can feel it when somebody is like, let's explore perspective and find some way of making sense of this. And then I can feel when somebody is just deeply uncomfortable with the fact that I'm talking about a very true and real emotion and they don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. And I think there's still a lot of discomfort out there around this stuff.
Parent is a category of human, and most people are parents. So when I hear that, and it's a human, so the parent, it's a role, but it's a human role. The toxic, it's like, for me, what would land better for me would be toxic behaviors. And like understanding that their behavior is not them. If I link toxic to masculinity or identity of someone, then I don't know for me if that serves the greater understanding of it, you know?
Yeah. What about if I said loving parent?
Yeah, in what context though, I guess. But the word loving being,
It's just the way that they're behaving. So would you go...
It's behaving, yeah.
Would you say you can't really call them loving?
I'd say you can. You can call them toxic parents, but I'm saying like what would be a better way in would be... But it's not like as punchy. It's not as like, it's a statement. And I don't know like how you feel about that. I'd like to know just when that happens, when it's like toxic masculinity, toxic parent, it just feels that it's them. There's nothing they can do to change it. It feels very finite.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that if you're the victim of a lifetime of abuse from somebody who has never changed, and in many cases never does change until the day they die, then I think you can call them what you want. That's kind of how I see it. And I understand that we have discomfort, but the reason I said like loving parent is because that's doing the same thing, but we don't get upset about that. So we're happy if it has a positive spin on it. So if I said positive masculinity, right, then we're sort of okay with it. But the discomfort comes when we say like toxic parent, right? What I'm actually talking about is an abusive parent in many cases, right? So the reason I say toxic is because many of the people that are victim of an abusive parent have not been able to see that what they're experiencing is even abuse. So if you say abusive parent or a parent that's abusive, they'll say, oh, that's not me. When you say toxic, then they can resonate with it. And I think that sometimes you need punchiness. Sometimes you need clear language. Let's take some other people like this. When you say someone is a rapist, you don't go to the victim of them and go, well, hang on a minute. They're not a rapist. They just did rape behavior. You wouldn't say that, would you? Do you think?
But I think rape is something that is an act. Toxic is like a flavor of someone. It's like it's the opposite of healing.
What about a paedophile?
Yeah.
You wouldn't say, well, they're not a paedophile. They've just got sort of child behaviors. Well, you might.
I think it's more of someone's a paedophile, yeah.
But if somebody's a toxic parent and they've done nothing but be horrible to their child their whole life, and they've placed themselves at the center of the universe. Now, I understand the point. I understand there's a key point here about change and about people can change.
Yeah.
People can and do change. Some people don't also. And I think that's important. That's just the truth. Now, it's great if a character over there has the opportunity to change and the community gets around them and supports them. And we go, look, never give up. I don't think you should ever give up on anyone. I don't think society or communities should ever give up on anyone, even the toxic parents that I'm talking about.
Does that make its way into the book? The piece around not giving up.
There's a whole chapter on community in there, but no, not specifically in there. But the key thing, again, the key thing to understand is the book is for people that have been through this their whole life, and nobody's ever spoke their truth without trying to wrap it up in a nice bow. And sometimes people need you to visit them in their current truth. People need you to visit them and see them. Go back to the analogy that we used. If you turn up and I'm bedridden a couple of days after a crash that's nearly killed me, and you're talking about recovery, I might say get out, bring someone that wants to bring grapes and flowers and be with me. So like, I think it's really important. I think it's really important to understand that. And I think it's really important to understand the nature of what we're talking about and the impacts of what people go through. So I spoke to somebody recently, I won't say their name, but they said it openly on the podcast. It was their podcast. They were sexually abused by their dad, who went to prison for it. And when he came out of prison, moved back into the family home.
Yeah, I saw this clip.
To live with her. So when we say that there's these toxic systems and toxic people that exist, when I hear of victims like that, and that's not an isolated incident, that's not an isolated incident. You've got parents who are so emotionally and coercively abusive to their children. I think their children can call them whatever the hell they want to call them. Now, I don't think those children should live there, because resentment will kill you. And I think they should get to tell their stories. I think they should get to tell their stories. Whenever there is a big trauma in your life, I think you should get to talk about the truth of that experience as you experienced it. And then work back from there. That's what I think. Now, important to say that it is always nuanced. And when you dig into it in the way that we're digging into it, I think it's great. And why does everyone get to do all the positive stuff and put it all online, but nobody gets to talk about the actual reality in the moment? Why can't we start there? Why do we have to start at the nice perspective? I know what I post and stuff makes people feel uncomfortable.
It also makes people feel really good.
There's a lot of people, that say it's so nice to finally have somebody that is just speaking my truth. And I think that's important. Yeah.
This is the piece which I love. We've kind of gotten to this. So I agree with what you're saying, and I've got so back and forth on this conversation probably the last 2 years of like, I unfollowed you for a while because it was just too much, and I was just like, I can't understand the message, and I was just like, I needed to pull back. Then followed you again, and it's been like actually been a bit of a battle to like, I'm not in your world, I don't see these people, I don't have these interactions, I'm in my own like circles, and it's not like, I know this helps people, it does, because you're sat here right now with this book and like with a following and a community that are benefiting so greatly from your work and your perspective and your unapologetic sense of life, and it's helping people. I know that. Yeah, that is, I just want to let that land as well, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
And there's a whole category of people that are resonating and need that direct message to say, yes, your parent's toxic and it's not your fault, and be delivered in that way. It's not going to land with everyone, but for a certain amount of people, it's going to, that's the message they need.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to understand that, like, it's one thing for it not to land. It's another thing if it's really upsetting, because then it's hitting something in us, right? if I find content, and there's people online that really irk me and wind me up, yeah, and most of the time they'll tell me it's for altruistic reasons, right? Because I'm like, what they're doing is fucking harming everyone else, right?
Yeah, do you take your own medicine when it comes to that?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Sometimes I just...
Yeah, you can just disagree. But from an
Sometimes
emotional place.
Sometimes I just disagree, yeah. No, and then sometimes I do break down. Why am I getting like that? Because I get stuck on certain people sometimes.
Walking around St. Paul's just like getting really mad.
Yeah. But I mean, look, it happens. But yeah, it's a tricky one. But look, by the way, I know a lot of people unfollow me regularly. And
then it's gone in waves, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Like a surge of, there's more attention put here, and it's like, who knows what the,
I feel very much an
is.
outsider in the space.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel
like a participant. It's more like,
I don't feel welcome in the spaces yet.
Oh really?
I don't feel welcome in like don't feel welcome in the men's space. I don't feel very welcome in the sort of spirituality healing space either. And I know a lot of that is, I know some of that's my stuff, by the way. I always feel like an outsider, yeah. And sometimes I will feel like an outsider and then make myself an outsider. So sometimes I will like...
Yeah, to prove yourself right.
Yeah, I'll go rogue or I'll rebel just to be a rebel. So I do a bit of that.
Do you want to feel like an insider?
I've always... It's a good question. I've always enjoyed being a rebel. Like even when I still play football, yeah? And I play like I would call it a semi-decent level. And I always play the pantomime villain in that. When I'm on the pitch, I always play the role and the character of getting all of the supporters on the opposite team to hate me and winding them up and cheating them up. So I was like that at school. The moment anything felt like a sort of clique or a movement or popular or a bandwagon, I always want to jump off it. I've always been like that. So there's a bit of me that likes that. I think it's also driven by a little bit of I don't trust anybody, like because of my life experiences and stuff like that. I find trust very, very difficult. So I tend to hold people at arm's length anyway. So I've always lived as a little bit of a lone ranger in that respect. So if you're a lone ranger,
well, the perception is you can't get hurt.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
potentially it's doing more harm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done, I've been working on that the last couple of years with the men's group that we've got. It's been really useful and helpful. And then the community space that I run has been really, really helpful with that. And I also don't get carried away thinking that every difference or every struggle in me is something that I need to fix and heal. My game for the last 18 months has been about just loving who I am rather than thinking I've got to better myself in some way to be lovable, because that's what I did all my life.
Do you love who you are?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I do, yeah. Most of the time. Don't get me wrong, I have days when, like everyone, right, when I hate myself and it all feels too much. But most of the time, yeah, I'm very comfortable with who I am. I'm not always comfortable with sharing who I am fully to everyone. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot for me to show that, because to be really clear as well, posting content online, people say to me, "Oh, you're so vulnerable with your content," but sitting in front of a camera and post and being vulnerable is not really being vulnerable, right? It takes a bit of courage, and people that do it are brave, but it's not intimacy, is it? I could sit in front of a camera knowing I'm going to post it out to thousands of people online and talk about some of my deepest struggles, but sit me in front of my wife or people that I really care about, and I clam up and really struggle to do it. Because it's in my relationships and my intimate relationships and stuff like that. So I've always been a bit of a rebel, but I also have a lot of beliefs around this stuff of, I think sometimes we say stuff that really feels and tastes good, but doesn't play out in the world that we live in. I think that happens a lot. And so I don't get caught up in that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What's the next step in trusting people? Like, what do you think? Is there motivation to let people in?
I think what I've done is slowly built a circle and community of people around me.
Yeah.
So, I had to do some work for the last year around men. I realized that I didn't really have any men friends. I had lots of mates and acquaintances and stuff. So I noticed that, and then I worked on that. I don't want or need everybody to like me. I did that in my, late teens, throughout my life until more recently. I so desperately wanted everybody to like me all of the time. And I realized we're not supposed to live like that either. I'm not supposed to be liked by everyone, and I get lost. I lose myself too much when I try and do that. So I've got like a close, evolving, growing circle of people that I do truly trust. Yeah. Like, am I sat here thinking I really need to build trust and get more people in my life? Not really. No.
I see it as the energy of the lion, to be known and respected by many, but known intimately by few. Makes sense?
I've never heard that before.
If you think about the lion and like...
Yeah.
It's admired and respected by many, but like, who really knows the king? How many people?
Like that,
how many people can you let in your kingdom? Like, truly, and hold close and accountable and with integrity. And I don't know if it was you said the other day, it might have been around like, how many relationships can you actually hold? And it's not, even if you were liked by everyone, you couldn't let them all in.
No.
So like, what makes a healthy existence? And it's
Do you have lots of close people?
I do. I've always been someone who is very comfortable going from circle to circle and just being the social butterfly, just being around, like, known by lots. But intimately, in recent years, yes, I've exposed myself in many situations and with friends, and whether it's out to dinner or I'm very transparent with the stuff I'm working on, with my inner struggles, but also triumphs and all of it. I really intend to bring that in every space, really. That's like success to me. To really move and live from that place. But I definitely am known intimately by a few.
You're very grounded and centered in your nature. Well, you certainly come across like that anyway to me.
It's all a performance for the podcast.
There's a bit of that probably, I'd imagine, isn't it? Like, people say to me, you're so calm, and I think, my fucking end. The version of you that you present to me.
Yeah.
No, but like...
I get that.
But the energy in which you're able... Because, like, we don't agree on everything, me and you.
Yeah.
But I never feel attacked, or... I never feel like you're being needly with it. Which is not easy, because I get a lot of people that are clearly needling with me.
I don't need you to agree with me at all.
No, yeah.
But I love having I think it's so healthy to be. I don't think we've fully like gone there with maybe some things I'd love to bring forward when like things we really might disagree on. Because I know that you can meet me there as well.
Yeah.
I know you can meet me in that, and that's why I respect that.
Yeah, and that's the difference though, see? And the reason I highlighted that is because I get a lot of people, and I can see it online. I've had people have like outbursts at me, and you can think, whoa, where's that come from? Like, I thought we sort of operated in the same space. So I see that happen, and that's when you think there's something else driving this, mate. This ain't my stuff. Like, you know, some people I think like bring their projections to me, and I haven't really got the bandwidth or the capacity to deal with that. Yeah, but I genuinely love disagreement. Like I regularly read books by people who I've seen online that I think you're ridiculous, and then I'll buy their book and read it, and I love it.
What do you love about that?
I love trying to make myself wrong.
Okay.
Do you know why? Because
I agree. Yeah.
I'm a bit of an addict, right? But a big one. Some of the best moments that I've had on this journey have been when I realized something that I really deeply believe is wrong. You know, and I go,
yeah,
fuck, I was wrong, man.
Yeah, what an exercise to go around the world trying to prove yourself wrong.
Well, that's what debate is, right?
Science, right?
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be science. I ain't going down the route of what I think science is in our culture nowadays, but yeah, that's what science is supposed to be. And somebody messaged me recently, I think it was on LinkedIn. I can't remember what I posted. What did I post? I was talking about something and saying that I had been really skeptical about doing it, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But anyway, I was really skeptical about it. But I did it, and it like really opened up my eyes to it, and it was like really good. I can't remember what it was, but this guy said to me, it's really good to see somebody that's truly skeptical, because most people that say they're a skeptic are not a skeptic. They're actually very close-minded, and they say, oh, I'm too skeptical about all of that stuff. You can't be too skeptical, right? Because to be skeptical is to think, I don't think this works or is real, so let me try it. Let me fully give myself to it and then see if it is. That's what it is to be skeptic. So we should all be skeptics. Like, that's what life should be about. And I love that, man. I love that. And I've lived for a long time with the mantra that, you know, everything that I believe to be true could be wrong. And that's cool as well. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's what caused a lot of people suffering and physical ailments, let's say, or like growing into old age. What you see is people's inability to be open-minded. And this is rife in our culture. Older people are generally closed-minded.
Yeah.
And that manifests in the body, in posture, and like it just will. It's body, mind. And if you can stay curious, if you can stay skeptical, but lean in, I think it's health. Really. And the biggest things in my life I've been wrong about, like getting into cold water, is that I thought that was it's a harmful thing for myself. Like, why would I want to put myself through that? And then like now I'm like, I seek it out. It's like, okay, now it's a practice, and now it's like I was wrong about that. And how that I went to the saunas today, and I was like having this conversation with someone about this, and for her friends, it's like just allowing them to see the magic that can happen with heat or cold exposure could actually make them then start to reframe things in their life that they can actually more lean into.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm a big fan of the hot and cold as well.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. But I think when you have that mindset, right, then you can be open to a lot. It's even like, you know, I don't think too much of much anymore, apart from my own internal shit. That's deep. But even like when we talk about the term, you know, like when you say toxic parent, and there's a lot of dialogue around that. Should you do that? Or toxic masculinity. And there's a big part of me that thinks, we'll call it what you want. I don't really...
Yeah, you're just doing your thing in the best way.
Yeah, because language is funny, isn't it? Because we have these...
It also changes.
We have these descriptive words, and language is changing and evolving all of the time. Do I think the word toxic's used too much now? Probably. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have relevance in some cases. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure where I was going with that, but like, I'm not too attached to it. I'm not too attached to anything, man, is what I'm saying. And I don't think you should be. Oh, I don't think one should be.
Okay, forgiveness. How about finding forgiveness in a great book by Jason Gladys called How to Deal with Conflict in Your High Stakes Relationships. I love that framing of like high stakes relationships, your boss, your parents, your children. It's like these relationships that are mirrors, that are like the relational piece that means so much. And yeah, lots at stake. So like, how to find forgiveness, how important is that? You talk about it a fair bit. Is it, because I'm of the nature, I believe that we should be, there's no shoulds, but what benefits me is finding context. Everything makes sense in context, and then understanding if I'm not forgiving certain people, then I'm forgiveness for me is letting go of a hope for a better past. So I'm actually like allowing more presence. I'm allowing me to step into presence and love just in my life. It doesn't mean I won't have boundaries and I won't have things that I don't accept. But like, is that true for the work that you do?
Yeah, but I would call what you've just talked about letting go. So again, this is like semantics, right? We both maybe believe the same thing, although
because there's a lot of rhetoric and generalizations around you need to forgive and forget.
Yeah, look, I think so I think what happens is these things become quite dogmatic, right? So when you look at like religion over the years, not to dig out any religions in particular, but they'll take forgiveness and then it's like you must forgive, and then it's like the day after something terrible's happened, there's no process, it's like you have to forgive. Like, I think that's problematic. When anything becomes dogmatic, it becomes problematic, right? Because it becomes this kind of fixed idea of what we should do. Now, when it comes to the situations that I'm talking about, I don't think you have to forgive. I don't think you have to forgive anybody. The reason I say that, because a lot of people will say forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's not about not having boundaries. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the situation so that it doesn't have any hold on you, so that you can be present and move forward with your life. And this could be semantics, right? But I would say that's not forgiveness. I would say that's letting go. Forgiveness, to me, the essence of the definition requires a small amount of grace to the other person. And so I think it's nice if you can give that grace to somebody.
What does giving grace really mean for you?
There's a part of forgiveness that says, I am breaking free from the impact what you had on me, and I'm going to move forward with my life, and I give you the grace to do the same. That's the important piece, yeah. Now, if that person's out there, still alive, still smear campaigning you, still trying to get at your support system, still trying to make you out to be crazy, infiltrating people that you care about, the circles that you've built, and trying to, in any which way that they can, rip those support systems away from you, I don't think you need to give them grace. I think it's very difficult in that circumstance for you to move forward with your life with any kind of freedom. And so I don't think you have to waste your energy or use your energy trying to give them grace in that way. Now, once that person dies, by the way, or changes entirely, but I would argue with anybody that a full-on narcissist, and I'm using narcissist as a term, not when you go to a doctor and they, what's the word I'm looking for?
Prescription.
Yeah, like a diagnosis.
Diagnosis.
Yeah. I believe a true one, a lot of them, they'll never change. I do believe that. And I think there's proof of that, or there's certainly proof that a lot of them never do. They take it, they like it to their grave. And so if this is the case, then I don't think your energy should be needed to find a level of grace for them. I think you can cut free, find grace for yourself, and move forward with your life.
You think it serves people more not to do that?
Just to be really clear, I'm not against forgiveness. Like my dad was a raging alcoholic. I forgive him, but he's dead. He's been dead for 30 years nearly. Like, there's a lot of time that's passed. There's no repeating. I'm not like trying to work towards forgiving my dad only to get to bump into somebody in the street and hear how he's been out there talking about what an awful person I am. And then I feel back to square one and I'm trying to work on giving it. He's dead. The line in the sand is drawn. We've moved on. I'm forgiving his spirit in many ways. Yeah. So maybe that's reachable. Maybe that's reachable. Maybe it's more reachable in that instance. But most people's lives are way more messy and complex than that. And I do think, by the way, unless you've been on the receiving end of what these people can be like fully, then it is difficult to understand. I think it's difficult for people to even comprehend. And so I've been on the back end of a smear campaign.
To define smear campaign, because you talk about it a lot and I don't actually know what it is.
So if
so someone does something significantly detrimental to someone, and
I cut you out my life,
yeah.
So I escape. Say let's not use you. I was about to make you an abuser. So let's say somebody is abusing me. I'm in an abusive relationship, right? Yeah. We know that people have to escape abusive relationships normally. We talk about escaping an abusive relationship. Go to Women's Aid. They will tell you about countless women who escape in the depths of the night from their abuser, such as how abuse can happen. So, by the way, let's think about what that might mean if it was your parent as well, right? And how that happens as a bit of a side point. But if I escape an abusive relationship, then the abuser then will infiltrate all of my network, all of my support systems from where I work, any communities that I'm involved in, any charities that I'm involved in. They might get to my friends, and they won't go to my friends and say, Josh is horrible, don't listen. They'll go and they'll like cleverly play the victim and act like they're talking nice about me while lacing it with half-truths and falsities, so that you then start to think, well, Josh is not the person that he says he is, and he's not trustworthy. Mm-hmm. And then what it means is I start to meet people who fall away from me. My support systems do start to disappear because I've been labeled as the crazy one. Yeah. So now when I'm out,
meanwhile you might be respecting their privacy, or like actually just...
I'm probably holding a dignified silence. Yeah, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Now when I'm out, whenever I bump into somebody, I'm fucking over explaining, because I'm thinking, have you been had? Have you got this opinion of me? Do I need to prove myself? And so I might be like that, or it may slowly shut off, slowly isolate. And then slowly I have no support systems left around me. I'm on my own. Everybody thinks this thing about me, and even if you don't, I'm worried that you do. And then they will, like when it's a parent or even when it's an ex, yeah, that doesn't, you have to understand me, yeah? That doesn't stop. If it's your parent, it doesn't stop for the whole time that they're alive. And then you engage in some kind of help, therapy, looking at people online, and everyone's going, you need to work on forgiveness, and you need to work on seeing this person, you need to understand it's their trauma. I'm like, nah, man, that is not where you start. That is not where you start. You start with, this is fucking horrible for you. And that person out there that's doing that is a fucking nasty person. And they are being nasty and fucking toxic and horrible. And the fact that you feel the way that you do makes perfect sense. You've lost all your friends, all your support systems. So when you understand the levels and the depths and the complexities of this, then you start to go, let's start where people deserve, in my opinion, where they deserve. And the level of abuse that we're talking about is as deep as the comparisons that I made earlier. You know, like when I said, what about a rapist and stuff like that? Like emotional abuse, when it's continuous, your whole life, is just as bad as any abuse. It's just as bad as any abuse. And what you find is when a lot of people argue with me and they say, you know, you should never cut your parents off, you should always work towards it. I'll say straight away, well, even if they sexually abuse you? And they go, well, no. Not if they're sexually, all right. What about if they're physically abusing you? Well, no, they don't know. All right, so it's just emotional abuse you have to put up with. You know what I mean? And it's like I always say, I never tell anyone they should cut anyone off. I just recognize that for some people it's the only way.
Mm-hmm. So that's a smear campaign.
Yeah, fucking hell, I forgot that's what we were talking about.
You might. No, it's good though. Yeah, it paints quite the picture, right? Of how someone can, and flavors of that creep in of like, that was what that was, and we all have heard or know of, and it happens a lot in relationship, right? And yeah, it's fucking petrifying for someone that doesn't have the capacity or hasn't got the network or the trust within themselves, and there's wounds there playing out. And
exactly. And by the way, think of all the messaging, just to interrupt you, sorry. Think of all the messaging that person in the end of that smear campaign that we're just talking about is getting. Maybe I am the problem. Like, maybe I am awful. Like, maybe I'm a terrible person. Like, if everybody believes this, maybe they're right. Maybe I am the crazy one. Maybe I am the awful one. So that's naturally where they're going to be. That's naturally what they're going to be thinking about themselves. So the starting point is not, certainly not the starting point is not forgiveness. And it's certainly the starting point is not like, how do we correctly label this person? The starting point is like, let's fucking get it out. Let's really let's make this really clear. You're not crazy. This is awful what you're experiencing. And like how you feel is entirely appropriate. Let's start there and work with that. And then, like I do in the book, how do we work towards finding you some freedom in your life? How do we help you take some responsibility here? You know, how do we give you some ability to respond to what's happening here? Mm-hmm. I think that's important, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched upon that. Responsibility, radical responsibility. What does that look like in the book or in this work? And I do think you're on the front lines as well. Like, I come into the podcast with all my ideas and perspectives, and then it's like I meet you and we connect, and it's having the real conversation, and I'm leaning into the people that you're interacting with. And yeah, it's like, it is the front lines. It's like, it is the people that are like having their inner world just torn apart.
Yeah.
On the outside, you look at them and you might think, what makes it worse is like, they're kind of all right, they're white, middle class, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, inside they are really like feeling broken and hurt. And it's like that emotional front line of humans that are just going through a world of pain and haven't got the spaces or the support to actually, or the frameworks or the people to connect with. You've got over here, you've got healing and spirituality and growth mindset and but then you're like, I'm struggling how to make sense of myself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think, by the way, you've really, really touched on such an important point, right? Which is the distance between those two spaces as well. You know what I mean? The real distance between somebody who's in that space that I just talked about, and then somebody who's built support systems, is going to retreats, has the money to go to retreats, is operating in spaces where there's other people who've done work and have new perspectives and have trodden that path and been on that journey. Like, it's easy for us to get, as people that go and be in those spaces, it's easy to forget that we're a small portion of people compared to the people out there. But your question to your question about responsibility, when you think about it as the ability to be able to respond, right? That's different to accountability. Yeah. Now, accountability is important. I do think that accountability is really important. I think we should all take accountability. We should all take accountability. The reason I think I'm able to talk about some of the things that I talk about is because I've got my own toxic traits, right? Like, of course I have. I'm a work in progress. I sometimes I'm at home and think, if people come in my house and saw what I'm like with my kids sometimes, they'd be thinking, who the fuck are you to write this book, right? Because that's real life, man. That's real life. But I look for accountability. I look for giving people accountability. Responsibility is slightly different, right? I don't have to be somebody that's grown up with a parent like this, doesn't have to be accountable for what was done to them. It would be bloody nice if they got some accountability from somebody, wouldn't it? Yeah. Then forgiveness really could be a real possibility. Giving somebody the grace, if somebody says through their actions, I'm sorry for what I did. I realize how much it hurt you, and I'm really going to make a change. Yeah. It might take some time for that person, but if the energy and the behavior then match that, then forgiveness would be much more possible, much more reachable, much more aligned. But responsibility is like, I'm in my adulthood now. I'm trying to build my own life.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take some responsibility because I have no choice.
Yeah.
I didn't cause this. I can't control it. But what I can do is make healthy decisions and work on myself. And I think that, that the whole can't control piece is really important. We know that, like, if you love somebody with addiction, you can't control their addiction, innit? But if their addiction is to being horrible, you have to remember you can't control that. It's really important for us to understand that, I think, in our relationships as well, right? Let's see the good in people, and let's see everything in them. Let's see the bad in that in them as well, innit?
Yeah.
And then, I don't want to spend my life abandoning myself to try and make you like me and fit to me, So anybody's responsibility with their parent is to see the truth of who they are, see them in all their glory, in all their hardship, in all their pain, in all of who they are, and then make an honest decision of the type of relationship you're able to have with them. For a lot of people, they might find they have an emotionally immature parent who can't meet their emotional needs. How can you have a relationship with that parent free from that? Can you adjust your expectations? Is it manipulative of you to keep trying to get them to be everything that you need them to be? Perhaps it is. We talk about that in the book, in the Healing My Relationships chapter. But for some people, I mean, they're not even given a tiny bit of string to cling on to. They're given nothing. And in those instances, maybe their responsibility is to say, I can't do this anymore. And my responsibility to myself and my partner or future partner, my children or future children, my responsibility to them is to get rid of this influence in my life so that I can create a true, meaningful one that has a level of freedom in it. If it was any other relationship, we'd be very, very comfortable with people breaking free from it.
Yeah. So, I see abuse, and the worst kinds of abuse is the incremental things that you just go unseen because they're so normal in a relationship. I think if we went through this book with everyone I know or have come into contact with, my generation, there's elements in everyone's life, and I think a lot of them, you could say, they have toxic parents, judged on this book.
Mm-hmm.
It's my responsibility to do what I think I should with that information. This is going to be a hard question to frame, but I'm going to do my best.
Go for it.
Well, actually, I'll get to that. On this thread, my mum and dad are alive. I have a relationship with them. It's really hard for me to do the work I do on myself, to change a lot of stuff, to work through, to transform, like to meet parts of myself with the help of others, to meet parts of myself that allow me to grieve deeper and like really access emotions that I never could in my teenage years and 20s. Come back to the home with all this new information, all these new tools and frameworks, understandings, to come back home and like the hero's journey, to like come back home and like share that with the world, really. Not be met there, but have all this language, all this kind of understanding, all this understanding of how my past has shaped me. And then for my mum and dad not really to have any connection or access points into that. I'm the only person probably in their lives that talks in this way, that reveals themselves in this way. That can be uncomfortable for them. It's then faced with, okay, there feels more distance here, even though I feel closer to myself, but more distance with my caregivers. Mm-hmm. Do I cope with that? Or do I say, no, this is how I want to be treated. This is how I want to be met. With new expectations, new standards for myself, so I want therefore others to treat me the same. But that can't be accessed in that dynamic. I think that's common for a lot of a generation that have done a lot of work on themselves. Mm-hmm. And then it gets to a point of like, I'm kind of just coping. And there's this interesting energy, whilst my parents are alive, that I actually feel comfortable talking to them about, even though I feel like I have great understanding of what happened to me. But because there can't be a conversation around it, because to a large extent, there's no reflection, there's no dialogue around how my past could have disabled or disassociated myself from other parts of myself. So then what? Is it easier? Is it okay to just cope with kind of like this energy that's not really fulfilling? And what do I do with that? And the people that you coach and you meet, is that a relevant theme? Everything I've just described?
Yeah.
Because it's this kind of like murky, grey, like, it's like, what do I do? And like, how much is enough? And it's for me to decide and discern to where to, how much to give. And this is life, right? This is all relations.
Yeah.
But I think it's a big one, and it's a visceral one for me to speak to that and really try and articulate the discomfort I have in those, even older friendships or parents, family.
Yeah. Well, look, with the older friendship ones, it's quite, for me, much simpler.
Sure.
I feel like I've outgrown and evolved. Outgrown sounds arrogant. That's just my experience of it. I think I've evolved through friends that we no longer connect on any level because...
Yeah, it's a lot easier to reduce contact.
With the parents, it's slightly different, right? I think you have to adjust, like, your responsibility is not to change them. Like, it's not just because you've done some work on yourself, you can't expect them to do some work on themselves. Like, that's not their... I would argue as your parents, it should be their responsibility to try and be as close to you as they can. But that's not the way that people are, is it? So you have to, there's nothing that you can do to change them. They might change. They might open up to it. But they might not. And you can chase it, and you can run after it, and you can think, maybe if I show up in this way, or maybe if I get them to see this, and you can do that all of your life, and then eventually they won't be here, and you'll think I wasted my whole life trying to do that. Or you can adjust your expectations and have the relationship with them that they're able to have with you. That's the choice. That's everyone's choice, right? Everyone's choice. So I bring my mum. My mum doesn't do emotions at all. Yeah, bless her. She's just had a open heart thingy, bypass in her heart. I texted her the night before she was about to have it and said, Mum, I hope it goes okay. Keep us informed. Love you. She texts back, will do, with a kiss. Before she went in for this massive surgery that could have ended it all.
Got a kiss.
Now, of course, there's a part of me that's like, that was your chance to just say I love you back to me. And she didn't. I'm an emotional person, yeah? I'm very loving in my relationships, yeah? When I do get close to somebody, I'm very loving. I love going deep into emotions and exploring them. My mum can't do any of that at the moment. But a few years ago, I adjusted my expectations and thought, so my mum's not horrible. She doesn't make me feel, she's not nasty to me. She doesn't make me feel like she's putting herself ahead of me. She just looks after herself emotionally by not being with emotions, ever, at any point. So rather than wasting the rest of her life wishing she was somebody that she's not, I have a relationship with my mum that she's able to have with me. And I work on my responsibility with the other bits. And as a result of that, I have a great relationship with my mum. Went to see her, after her surgery in the hospital. I saw her crying first time because I think she was quite shaken up by what she'd experienced and stuff. But I have the relationship with her that she's able to have with me. Through the work that I do, I'm very grateful that I have a mum like that. That I'm able to have a relationship with, that feels nice, that feels warm, that feels like a relationship.
So acceptance has helped you form a better relationship with your mum?
Yeah, acceptance of the truth. Now, for the people that are listening, and because I think it's important to say this.
No, just leave it there. Just accept.
All right, what do you do?
No, we go. Because that's not the full picture, is it? It's like, just accept them for who they are.
But
I'm doing it now.
No. That is the full picture.
Yeah.
No. It's the full picture.
That's the foundation.
You should accept.
Because that's the precursor to anyone being able to grow.
But that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Accept people exactly as they are. Mm-hmm. We should all do that with everybody. Don't try and change anyone, right? People might change. You be the best version of yourself around people. That's the only way I think you'll have an impact on people and potentially help them change, is by being the best version of yourself you possibly can be around them. But you should accept everybody exactly as they are, exactly as their actions show you, exactly as your body tells you when you're around them. That is exactly what everybody should do, I think. And then you've got a decision to make. With everyone.
Yeah.
Your new friends, your old friends.
I guess, because within that there's no lens in which you're trying to see them.
No.
You're not trying to project your own hopes and dreams onto them. You're actually just, it's very neutral, clear acceptance. Now let's understand where we can...
Now let's make a decision on how we move forward here. Seeing you exactly as you are. I'd love to see everybody through a nice, loving lens.
You love it, don't you?
But you get hurt if you do, innit?
So how do you work with people to accept more of their parents?
Well, the journey on the book is all about you. So we start off by looking at yourself and the mistakes that you've made and your flaws and how they show up, and looking at what's driven you in them, so you can start to find some self-compassion for yourself. In my case, drank stayed in relationships that hurt me. What was I driven by? I was driven by fear. I want to be liked. I want to be loved. When I understand that about myself, I can start to find a little bit of self-compassion. Then you start to do a bit of your parts work or shadow work, whatever you want to, however you want to frame it. And you start to realize, well, there's all these different versions of me, and they're all serving a purpose. And, I have my own toxic traits, and I have my own struggles. And if the more I can get clear on exactly who I am and realize what it takes for me to try and change myself, once you get some level of self-acceptance for who you are, it brings acceptance, I think, for the people around you. And I do think I think it's so important. I think it's so important to accept people as they are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to accept yourself. See, I would even argue that in more recent times, I've realized that my healing journey has been about trying to make myself lovable by changing myself or learning more about myself so that I can be better. I don't think that's the game either. If I think about the reason that anybody struggles to love themselves is because their parents couldn't install the love in them, right? For whatever reason. And not all of that is because they're toxic and horrible. A lot of it is because I can't install it in my kids, right? Because we just generationally, we pass it on. What I can't love in myself, I'm going to struggle to help my child see, because any emotion I'm running away from, I'm not going to be there. I remember when my first kids were born, and before they develop a rational part of the brain, they're just a big ball of emotion. And I used to hold it and think, I don't know how to relate to this thing. And I would watch, if I look at my wife now, ours are 8 and 6. So when my 8-year-old was born, I was like 3 or 4 years sober. I was better then and more emotionally equipped. But certainly like my younger kids, I couldn't relate to a big ball of emotion. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I've lost my trail of thought. What was I talking about when I started that sentence off? When I started that off, even you can't remember. Yeah, I'm sure it's still a good point anyway.
It's a great point. Yeah, I think also a big piece is how the perpetuation of it's them, not you. But the more and more we speak, I feel like this book could equally be called It's You, Not Them. You just have a different way into the conversation, but it wouldn't be as punchy.
No. It's not that it's not punchy. It's that it's further down the line.
Is that the second book?
You have to first, if you've been on the receiving end of abuse, you have to first realize that it's not you. Yeah. The pain that you feel is not you. Maybe the next book is it's not them, it was their parents. Because you can do that. You can go through the generations and know that.
Yeah.
That's the score. Here's what I was saying. I've come back to my thought. We get caught up in chasing the healing game, right? The self-development game. I need to improve myself to make myself lovable, find all of my parts, work with them so that I can be a better version of myself. But when you were born, you were not held in the arms of a parent who looked at you and said, I really hope that you can be someone so that you can be lovable. You were not held and they didn't say, I really hope that you go on to do something good in the world so that you are of value. They might hope you do good in the world, but they don't hope that so that you are of value. When you're a child, you are the essence of love. You are born, you are love. You are the essence of love. You are value. Your value exists because you exist. You are entirely lovable in every single part of who you are the moment that you were born. And we get away from that because self-love is not something we're supposed to learn or teach ourselves. Self-love is something that's installed in me under the loving gaze of a parent who loves me in every single one of my emotions. If a parent was able to love me through my sadness, my jealousy, my rage, if they were able to be there holding me, mirroring love back at me through all of them, I wouldn't have to do any work when I was older, because I wouldn't have lost sight of my value. I wouldn't have come away from the fact that I am lovable. So the game is actually, how do I discover all of these parts of myself and learn to love them, not improve them, love them. Because I can love myself when I've done something good. I can love myself when I've been to a retreat and done some work on myself and come away and think I'm a good person. Can I love myself when I'm on the train and I'm looking at someone thinking horrible things about them? Can I love myself when I fucked up because my nervous system got overactivated and I was fucking desperate to escape myself, so I did something stupid? Can I love myself then? In the way that a parent is supposed to love you, which is completely and entirely unconditionally. The only time in any relationship where love should, in my opinion, perhaps be unconditional. In every other case, there are conditions.
There are people that think that we place too much expectation on our parents. It can be the story we tell ourselves. I think that's a good question to ask anyone, is like, what story are you telling yourself about the way the world is supposed to work, or how you were supposed to be brought up? And a lot can unfold from that. Like, I've definitely done that. I've spent a lot of time wanting things to be different, or thinking they should have been, or like stuck in that stuck state of like just trying to change the past. And I also lean into that conversation of placing so much of like, this is how my parents should have raised me. This is how, like the ideal, and living from that place of the ideal. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I've idealized what my childhood should have been like. And it was never gonna be, and it never will be. So I've definitely found myself stuck in that place too.
So what was the place that you were stuck in?
Like wanting things to be different, because I figured out I would have benefited from things that were different. And I just idealizing like, they should even, relating it to now, they should love me unconditionally. They should like just want to spend all their time with me, like help me, support me, do all these things that are going to benefit me. But to be honest, I don't even know if they would. But there's this kind of idea that exists in my head. It's a story about like what my parents are supposed to do for me. And I don't know where that's come from, really.
Is it still there?
Not so much.
But it's still there.
The acceptance is more there now.
Yeah.
I think it can be a collective thing. Like, how much emphasis do we put on, an expectation do we put on our parents to give us everything we need? When ultimately they can never do that.
Yeah.
They can never give you everything you need. Because also they give you everything you need, or think you need. Because what's actually needs, like, they're all quite, I don't know, subjective. Of course, there's the basics, but like in terms of like anything material, we know that's just actually a waste of time.
And it's interesting because, you know, a lot of people say give your children a childhood they won't need to heal from, and I always say, well, good luck with that, because you won't do it. They'll need to heal. My kids will need to heal from the childhood that I've given them. My hope is that when they come back from the retreat with new learnings, that they won't be sat there saying, because that's the progression for me, right? It's that they can go, I went home to my dad and I said, I've been on this retreat and I've learned this stuff, or whatever, wherever I've been, and I've learned this stuff, can we talk about it? And I'll sit down, and I might not be able to fully accept what they're saying, but I'll be willing to have the conversation. That's the level up, right? It's not like perfect parents. And then to your point about what your parents should have done, I think there's lots of stuff that I think we should, like, not should. I think...
Yeah, we're saying should a lot.
Yeah, no. But sometimes, I think sometimes there should be no shoulds, right? But sometimes I can have an opinion of what should be. So then I say should, yeah? But what I mean is, there's a different thing I'm trying to say here, is that we're allowed to have expectations of what our parents should have done. And that can coexist with knowing that they didn't. And that now, as an adult, with my voice at my disposal, my intellect, my strength, my knowledge. I can now use all of these things to be able to move through that, find a new way, have a new rational way of thinking about it, and always remember, I can still feel like they could have done more. I say it about both my mum and dad. My dad was an alcoholic addict, died when I was a kid, right? I can say to you, and believe it, he was an addict, it wasn't his fault, it's not a moral choice. It was nothing to do with how much he loved me. It was nothing to do with what he thought about me. It was nothing to do with me at all. It was his addiction, it wasn't his fault. My mum was under the stress of my dad's addiction. She had no support whatsoever. What was she supposed to do? It was nothing to do with how much she loved me. She struggles to do emotions. That's not her fault. She probably never got them when she was younger. I can tell you all of that, and it's great. And when I connect to my heart and my body, there will always be parts of me that say, was I not good enough? Did she not love me? So is the work that I get rid of those feelings and emotions? Do I connect with that, what feels like a much younger part of myself, and imagine it as a child and say to it, stop feeling like that? That's not true. Or do I go, I get it. It makes sense that you feel like that. We can hold that. We can hold that. And maybe sometimes that part of me might want to hear some of the rationale, might want to be shown some of the rationale. Great. Sometimes it don't. Because sometimes all a child needs is a bit of support and understanding. This is horrible for you. You don't have to change how you feel about that. That makes sense.
So what we're dealing with now is human psychology, and how the primary caregivers severing that, rupturing that connection is like a death. So we're dealing with human evolution, really. So do you feel that a lot of people protecting their parents from getting hurt, protecting their connection to them in some way, at least they're connected, whether it's like they're still playing out that wound, right? So all the people that are protecting with their language, mainly like protecting, like giving you all the generalized terms that, you know, they're just doing their best, like it's okay. Fundamentally, they just don't want to disconnect, and that is that just en masse what's happening.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that,
because there's a common thing of this age of like, we're not enough, we don't feel enough. And do you feel that is just directly linked to the foundations of not fully getting that unconditional support and love when we were children?
Yeah, I do. Like, I think there's a lot of that. And I think it's really hard, right? It's really hard to talk about even my parents in the way that I do. My dad was my hero. He didn't do any heroic things. He didn't do anything heroic. He did the opposite. I have no good memories of my dad whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Again, psychology, it's like, it's the man that models how for you to be.
Yeah. And I don't remember cuddling him. Don't remember feeling loved by him. I don't remember ever having a man sit me on his knee, put his arm around me and say he's proud of me. And my dad was my hero because he was my dad. So, like, all of these things can and do coexist. I get sad when I think about my dad. My mum is the best mum in the world. She's better than any other mum on the planet because she's my mum. And some of the reasons I'm fucked up is because of her. Because of how she showed up. In my case, that's not, these are just, all of these truths can simultaneously be true. And I can be with all of them. And I can look people in the eye and know what I think and feel. And I think that, you know, when people say they did their best, it's to shut it down, because it's like, mine did their best as well. They probably did. Everyone's got a fucking story, man. Like, some of the, you know, the worst people in the world have probably got a reason why they like it. And they're some of the worst people in the world. So like, I just think that we have to try and reach a stage where we can see and hold all these different truths. And my body's truth, by the way, is normally different to my rational truth. My body's truth is normally different to my rational truth in so many instances, you know? I can make rational sense of my whole childhood. I think that's what the Western world wants you to do. I think the Western world wants you to get up in your head, make rational sense of it, file it away nicely. This is why it happened. It wasn't their fault. They didn't mean it. It was their trauma. Nobody is inherently bad. Like all of those things. And I think that there's truth in all of them. And I think there's a child within all of us who doesn't have the capacity to know those truths and just feels what they feel. And I think we need to be there with them more. Not to fix them, not to change them. At 4 years old, if you came in my house when my dad had just smashed it up and been taken away by the police, and you said to me, what do you want? I wouldn't have said, I want you to fix my dad. I wouldn't have said, I want you to stop him smashing the house up. I would have said, I just want someone to be with me. And we don't do enough of that. I just want someone to be with me and make sense of the truth. I'd want someone to be there so I can say, I hate it when my dad smashes the house up. Would you say to that 4-year-old me? I think a lot of people would, and that's half the problem. It's not his fault, he didn't mean it. Or if I said in that moment when I'd heard my mum and dad fighting, I hate my dad, he's toxic and horrible. Would you say, don't be so stupid. No, but he's not, that's just his behaviour. He's not toxic and horrible. You'd say, I fucking get it, man. You probably wouldn't swear because I'm 4. You'd say, I hear you, man. I can understand totally why you think that at the moment. People have to have their truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think truth is my truth, your truth, everybody's truth, right now, is what's most important. And if your truth right now, for how you feel about a situation, how you see it, view it, and make sense of it, if that makes anyone on this planet uncomfortable, then that's their fucking problem. That's what I think. I think if my truth...
Say your truth. It makes me uncomfortable.
yeah. But then that's what you think. But it's true, isn't it?
Isn't that the ultimate... Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to see it from another... I'm trying to almost prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing here. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. It's biggest... No, it's a truth.
And there's always more. And there's always more than one of those.
I say everything is real, but nothing is true.
So, I like that.
Yes.
I like that. So maybe rehash what I just said.
And it's real, right? It's real.
Whatever is real for you, and whatever is real in the way that you make sense of your experience right now, is yours, and it's real to you, and nobody gets to tell you it's not.
Yeah, I'm all in. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably better than the truth, yeah. Because there's always 1,000,001 truths.
Yeah, people get attached to the truth.
Yeah, so what's real? But that's like... But by the way, that comes back to a lot of the, like, we talked about like the dogmatic stuff earlier. This is why I get into all these different like practices, and then I feel constricted by them. Because it feels dogmatic. Because I want to go, I love all of this bit, but I don't like that bit there. Why can't I just take all that? Because when I was about, I'm going off on another tangent here, but when I was about a couple of years sober, I got baptized as Christian.
Wow.
Because
Did you go to church and they sold it to you?
I went to church.
Because they've got a great technique of how to get you in that
I
water. I was there the other day and they were really selling it.
Yeah, I loved it. And I was in it, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I did what I always do, which I was reading this book on Buddhism, and they were like, why are you reading that? And I was like, well, because I fucking like this bit here.
Yeah.
And they were like, you
can't do that.
The devil's at work. And I was like, yeah, but it's a fucking good book, man. And then And then I was like saying to the pastor afterwards that, like, what do you think about the Bible? You keep saying is the ultimate word, and it says like stuff about gay people in there. And I was like, are we having that? And he's like, well, and he sort of wasn't. He's like, yeah, well, if it's in the Bible, isn't it? And then I was like, this shit don't add up. And I still think the Bible's got some great bits in it. And I've just got to the point now where I think anything that I've always said, the only ultimate truth is yours. The only ultimate truth is yours. But I really like what you've said. It's only whatever's real in your world is real.
Yeah, everything's real.
And nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe James Fish Gill. You had some exchanges with that man, didn't you?
Yeah,
to go there.
Yeah. Maybe we won't go there on the podcast.
I've had him on twice. So, like, the way he communicates, I really get a lot from it.
Yeah,
and his heart-led coaching and validating others and I mean the podcast community, I really get I've brought that into their lives and it's changed a lot. But whatever works, really, right? Whatever works.
Exactly, man. And I always say people shouldn't get so angry with me because I might change my mind about everything tomorrow. I might.
Yeah.
I might, you know what I mean?
I know.
And that's just on the anger thing, because a lot of people say I fucking seem angry all the time.
Why so angry? Well, are you aware that do you play up to it? Do you step into that archetype a little bit? No,
but I am. I'm a passionate. Like, people say to me sometimes I'm angry. I'm talking about something.
But you on a podcast is different to you on a reel. You know it.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
That's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, so
or maybe
the reels, but by the way,
your creation mode is like, I'm feeling really energized to create, and it's like that type of...
But 90% of my reels are me doing a live Instagram.
I know, yeah.
So somebody's asking me stuff. Yeah. I get fucking angry on them.
Yeah.
Because people will be like, this...
Again, you just can't take nothing's real, nothing's true on there.
If somebody's going to me... it was my wedding day and my mum told me that my wedding dress, just before I was about to walk down the aisle, told me my wedding dress looked horrible. That fucking makes me angry. So yeah, I'll just get angry. Like, I think anger's banging, mate. I think it's good. I like being angry.
I know.
I think it's good, man.
I like that you being angry.
I've got a lot of energy in me, man. I've got a lot of energy in me. And a good way of getting it out is like healthy anger.
Yeah.
It's good, man. It's good being angry. It's good, man. And we're terrified of it. And if we're not careful, the spiritual realm tells us that if we're angry, it means that something is wrong in us.
Well,
it says that they think
what conspiracy you want to tap into.
Yeah, they say that they think there's something wrong in us if you're moved and there's some kind of reflection.
I don't think it's... Think about school systems and you start going into mainstream spaces. It's like... I had some coaching and it was about activating this anger that was rooted, and it's like access, and it dissipates, and then there's sadness and there's grief and there's other stuff. But it's so important. I hold space for it on the events that I do because it's just the gateway. It's just like, go there, give space for it. Like throwing a rock into the ground and being witnessed in this expression. It's a game changer.
And most good things in our history of our society have been driven by angry people. Martin Luther King was angry, the suffragettes were angry. Like, fucking good job they were.
Yeah.
Good job they got angry and fucking used their anger to change, innit? To make change.
Absolutely. It's linked to your yeses and your nos.
Yeah, it's such a good motivator, man.
Yeah, your boundaries.
Yeah.
If you're not able to get angry...
You got a problem.
What about someone comes to your home and tries to take your kids? Like, that...
Yeah.
Might happen.
Yeah.
The government, quite a big responsibility. If we went to war, I'd have to go.
Yeah.
If I'm not able to access my anger, and
you're bang in trouble, yeah.
So many things you could...
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's much I want to conclude with.
It's been a good chat, man. It's always a good chat with you because you challenge me, I like that. It's nice to be it's nice to be challenged with questions rather than... You go on podcasts and people are just teeing you up, really, aren't they? Which is different.
Yeah.
I'd rather be challenged, yeah.
Yeah.
Have we gone for like an hour and a half?
It's been 140, yeah.
Fucking good, mate.
Beautiful, man.
I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you for being here. And like, yeah, just it's good, man. It's been nice to connect in this way.
Yeah.
And just let my beliefs and ideas go as well.
Yeah.
Whilst connecting in this way. And I think invite a lot of people to do that, because when you see Instagram, you don't know people, and we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Of like, there's just
easy to forget it, innit, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, so easy. Yeah. And disconnect from that even accountability we have to know that there's a human here, and this isn't the full story of a section in Anyway, anything you want to speak to, point people to? You doing any events? Uncommon Man, like what else?
No, we got some. By the time this comes out, we'll be doing. So I want to make. I've got something upcoming called Belong, where I want to bring people together in massive spaces, in massive community, with no barrier to entry for anyone. Wow. That's my plan, is to make sure that people can access the tools that they need to be able to work on themselves, and it's not at a price point that is unreachable. So I'm working on how that's going to look, how it's going to be viable, but that's coming very, very soon. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you, man.
Thanks, mate.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, let's hug it out, man.